The planet is heating up.
The oceans are becoming filled with plastic.
Change starts now. Change starts now.
We're on a countdown
To zero waste. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast. Here's your host, Laura Nash.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zero Waste Countdown podcast and radio show. Today, I'm speaking with Zack Kong. He is the founder of a new company called 2050, and they are creating forks and spoons that actually can be composted in your home compost instead of needing to go to those big industrial compost centers. Zack, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's my pleasure.
So I want to talk all about your new company called 2050, and it's making home compostable spoons and forks. And this is a big change because a lot of the bio-based forks and spoons that we see on the market have to be composted in an industrial facility, but yours don't have to be, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about the company. So what's behind the name 2050, first of all?
We read the news is in 2050, some scientists focus that the weight of plastic will be more than the one of fish in ocean. So we really want to decide to prevent this event happening.
Yeah, it could be a very bad situation, and we know that the plastic industry is trying to double their output, and our recycling systems aren't really working, so it's good if we can get any alternatives to plastic. So what happened in your own life that you realized that there was such a big problem with plastic in our oceans?
When I still was a student, and then in about 2016, I took part in a project that helped to collect trash in the Diego River. This is a project from UCSD, and then I searched the destination of the trash when they leak out from the stream and river, and I learned that it was the ocean, one of the trash islands near Hawaii.
Oh yeah, we just did an episode on Hawaii. So you kind of saw that there was this big problem firsthand, and then you decided to do something about it?
Yeah, and then since that, I start my research in the house, starting from the kitchen.
Yeah, and did you say University of Southern California? Is that where you were in?
UC San Diego.
Oh, sorry, UC San Diego. Yeah, and what is your background?
I study bioengineering major as undergraduate in UC San Diego. And so I have some training of adding DNA of cancer cell. And of course, I also have some internship of manufacturing factories since I was high school student. Also, I have some internships during the summer of the college period.
Oh, wow. So you have the know-how, I guess, to turn this into like a big scale sustainable product, which is awesome. Do you want to tell us how you developed the recipe? Was it a lot of trial and error, or did you kind of know the recipe to use right away?
Actually, this development is not only about the recipe, it's also about how to make the mold in such kind of material, because it's not plastic. It's mixed from the flour, and then the mechanical property is quite different. So during development, I have to handle both sides. One is the mold, one is the recipe, and then any parameter of each side change that will interact another part. So sometimes I find out the recipe may work, but the mold is not work. I need to redesign. And by the way, and during the development of the mold, the 3D printing is quite help. Otherwise, it would burn like thousands of money to make that testing for each round testing of the mold. So it's quite amazing in this age with the help of 3D printing.
Wow. So are all of them 3D printed, or is that just for the design phase?
For the development phase is 3D printing. Right now, the 3D printing is not yet to reach the massive industrial production, except for airplanes.
Because it would be too expensive?
Yes, it's quite expensive for making the product, but it's quite cheap during the development stage. Because in this industry, manufacturing industry, if we want to make the stainless steel mold or any metal mold, there will be at least 10 times of the 3D printing during the testing phase.
So the recipe, I read it, but I can't remember. I think it's just like, it's flour and water, and there are a few other things in it. It seems like quite a simple ingredient list.
Actually, there's a lot of version of this flour, because in U.S. version is wheat, corn, and soy. This is a United States version. Ideally, we want to produce the product around the world based on their local grains. Ooh. So Europe has its own version, Australia has their own version, China has their own version, even like South Africa has its own version. So for the recipe pattern, I wrote about 80 pages. It's just about, there's a lot of combination of the formulation. And I remember it's about 200 combinations, and then available is about 20 to 30 to fit various countries in the world.
So that's good for America, because I know we have a lot of corn and soy growing. Yes. So that would be good to take advantage of that.
That first reason is we want to reduce the carbon footprint of the supply chains if we use the local grains. Another is we need to use the cheapest material to make this product cheaper. Based on current scenario, is petroleum-based plastics will go down quite a lot, because the requirement of petroleum right now is lower, and then it's getting cheaper. So I think it's competitive in economy scale. And then PLA is also will also go down, because if they get further development like a decade ago, and then eventually they go to the massive production. So in economy film, this probably has a little bit more advantage for the cost. But as we develop our mold and the machines, we will like to catch up with their cost like at the end of this year.
Oh, good. That's awesome. I hope that you do. And so the special part about these are that they're compostable. So how is it possible to have such a solid, usable spoon, and then it can just disappear like on the ground? How does that happen?
First, the material is natural, same as the fiber. And then, but not that's different from the bioplastics or petroleum-based plastic. So, with the help of the temperature, water, air, and some enzyme fungi we can see anywhere in the soil that could help to composting. Our product is still faster than fiber, because lots of fungi or bacteria can help to decompose the material. But the fiber only like 1 to 2 times of special enzyme that release the enzyme that can compose that material. So our product will be faster. And another way is the link of our the chemical link of our product is more easy to break down. So I think that is another reason.
Wow. Okay. That's very cool. And I think that that's a problem with plastic, is it's just the molecules are like so well held together. Is that right? I'm not sure.
Mostly it's based on the chemical reaction. So if the link between the molecules is easier to break down, maybe we've seen some enzyme with some room temperature that can be easy breakdown, so the whole material can be easy to break down. So if we add lots of energy to make a strong bonding of the between the molecules, so that the material is very hard to break down, like the plastic, because they have a chain reaction, so they have very strong chemical bonding. So it's really hard to decompose. Also, the fiber is most of complex natural material in nature. So it's also very hard to break it down.
And then the enzymes are already built into your product, which help the breakdown, right? That's what you're saying?
Our chemical bonding is weaker, and then there's a lot of fungi and bacteria like our material that can decompose them and then turn our material to fertilizer. That's with nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So lots of microorganisms or plants will like that if we put it on the soil.
Okay, so the enzymes aren't being built into the spoon and fork. You're just saying that they are already outside and they can
on the
feed
soil anywhere on the soil that can easily compose them.
Okay, awesome. And then, of course, in our compost too, they will break down. Okay, that's pretty amazing. Cool. So there's a regenerative aspect to the spoons and forks. So can you speak to that a little bit, Zack?
Yeah, sure. When our customer, some bought like Food Plaza or some chain store, we can recycle the waste product and then we can turn it to the fertilizer, which contains nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and lots of mineral. And then it can just simply decompose in 10 to 15 days and then turn it back to the nutrition to the soil. So we can actually sell the fertilizer back to some farmers, and then that could be create the regenerated economy.
Wow. So if there's a big buyer of these, you could probably pick them up after and then make some fertilizer. But I guess people can fertilize their own gardens then. So maybe I should be throwing my spoon in my garden?
Actually, some area like in New York, people who like to plant their own food on the roof. And then in San Francisco, there is some startup company is planting some food vertically within the warehouse. So I think there will be the trend of in the future is people plant the food outside, also indoor. So we can become upstream a supplier to provide the fertilizer to these people.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And then there's another big festival, and they're looking at bamboo because they have thousands of people that come to their family farm, and they want a fork that if it falls on the ground, it'll just return to the soil instead of them having to go and pick up, pieces of plastic.
That would be great, especially the farm area. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't have to worry about like bad chemicals, and they don't have to worry about like, metal. If someone drops a spoon, I don't know if it would get stuck in farm equipment. I don't know. So what about the packaging? Are you working on sustainability as well? Because I would assume that if restaurants want to buy these, they'd probably be buying them in really big orders. So are you working on the sustainability of like transporting and packaging them as well?
We are currently using craft paper for product packaging, even though for the cushion part, we still use paper during the shipping. So we are very strict of that. So I think it's ideally no any other plastic film or plastic stuff within the packaging, but it's still based on the law. But if somewhere like you still need to maybe Europe, maybe FDA in the United States, probably sometimes they need film packaging to seal up the whole product. So that's unavoidable if we meet this scenario. But currently, we haven't met any law requirement of that. So we keep using craft paper right now.
That's good. And for the whole thing, so from the design process to the manufacturing to sales and all that stuff, like what has been the biggest challenge about disrupting the plastic utensil industry?
For us, it's very hard to building awareness of customer and distributors in the area that do not have very strict environmental protection law, because lots of people still believe it's okay to use disposable PLA bioplastic utensil when in reality they are hardly different from the petroleum-based plastic.
Yeah.
So people just say, yeah, it's compostable. It has a label on the front, but lots of customers just ignore the small statement on the side of the packaging. Lots of the bioplastic packaging will have the word say, you have to recycle this waste material back to the nearby industrial facility. But when you check on the map, there's not quite a lot of such kind of facility nearby.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most important reasons is it takes money to recycle the material, and then the outcome of the composting is just some kinds of carbon without lots of nutrition as fertilizer. So lots of businessmen do not have motivation to build such kinds of industrial facilities.
So we brought Sangwon Su, he's a scientist from California, on the show, and he was saying that some of these supposedly compostable plastic items, their bonds are so well done, just like what you were saying, that they are just as persistent in the ocean than actual plastic. Because I asked him if they would break down quicker, because I would think if a plastic cup says on it that it will break down, it's compostable, and then maybe it has a warning on it, must be sent to a industrialized facility, I would still think that it would break down better in the ocean. But according to Sangwon Su, it doesn't. It's like just as persistent. I think at some point maybe it would be better, but I don't know. So yeah, you're right. Some of these things are not as good as they seem. And a lot of these things are just getting thrown into the garbage anyway. So I've seen a lot of places around Canada that will offer some sort of green serving tray or something, and then they just have a trash to put it in. They don't have food scrap removal. They maybe offer a recyclable cup, but they don't have a sink to rinse it out. And if it's not being rinsed, we know it's not going to go through the recycling system if it's all dirty typically. So, lots of challenges.
Actually, for the recycling industry, PLA or bioplastic stuff will pollute the recycle chain, actually.
Yeah.
PLA or bioplastic is very awkward stuff. They cannot put it to the recycling chain, then they have to be back to the industrial composting facility or just landfill. And then when I developed the product, I already read lots of research paper. That's also some research paper indicates that those bioplastics cannot be prevented very well in landfill or ocean environment. It's just like petroleum-based plastics. You got the point. Yeah, there's some research paper.
Yeah. What does PLA stand for?
It's originally made from cornstarch. I think it's called polylactic acid.
Oh yeah, polylactic acid. So it's not biodegradable, but it is degradable, I guess. I'm seeing on Google.
In science space, because my major is bioengineering, so I have to clarify it's a very important material in the biomedical industry, and then that can transparent to the human body. Is this decomposing in human body? But in outside environment, no, sorry, it's not. So it's overwhelming of the idea.
Do you mean that our bodies can process it?
Yes, it
wow.
it can make as a biomedical material and then transfer into the human body, and then that can, like some wire online that can soothe our wound, and then that can compost it by its own after several weeks. So that's quite helpful material. But I don't know who, but some people just use this idea to put it to the disposable utensil and then make this idea overwhelming of compostable stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you're listening, the BuzzFeed of all people did an excellent video. You can probably find it on YouTube. Just what Zack is saying about the bioplastics getting in the way of the recycling facility, because if you are drinking out of a cup and it's plastic and you don't notice that it is a compostable cup and you just probably throw it with everything else it looks like, which is plastic. And then I think it contaminates the plastic. So if someone's trying to like melt things down and make new plastic, then you've got this material that doesn't really quite work with the plastic, right? That they're trying to make new again. So I think it really screws up the recycling system, like you're saying.
Yes, some company trying their best to recycling the paper cups and then try their best to separate the film and the paper. But I don't know what is their cost right now, but they're trying their best.
Yeah. Sistana Group does that. They'll recycle coffee cups where they actually take the plastic off the paper and process it, but like pretty much nobody else is doing it. Certainly our area of recycling isn't doing it. And have you ever heard of the coffee chain Tim Hortons? It's like our Dunkin' Donuts in Canada. Like they're on every corner.
Yes. That company is in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is like there are Tim Hortons cups everywhere you go. Like there's such a big litter issue, and unfortunately our recycling facilities can't take them because it's just so complicated and expensive to pull those things apart, and then nobody's going to buy the products left over. So it's a big issue. But I just wanted to ask you a question about you, because I think it's so amazing that you have founded this company, and it seems like you've done some really amazing work and you've found like a really good way of using something instead of plastic. Are there things that you do in your own life currently that are either zero waste or sustainable?
Yeah, I have my electrical vehicle. I like the vehicle without emission gas.
Yeah.
And I try our best in our office is paperless. Any signed document should be just put it online, use PDF or other online service to just read it and then sign the name. And then my wife and I try to reduce the intake of meat, like especially beef. So yeah, we control it within small amounts of the meat intake. And on the other side is I really want to eliminate the paper as when that I received in my mail is very frustrating, but I still finding a way to ask people to not send such kind of ads in my mail.
Yeah,
waste lots of print and paper.
Yeah. I hear it's a problem in the U.S. because in Canada, all you have to do is put a note in your mailbox that says no junk mail, and you will never get junk mail again. But I think it's more complicated in the U.S. Like, I don't know why that doesn't work down there, but I've heard that it doesn't. I don't know. Have you tried? I really
want to find a way to eliminate that. That's frustrating.
But yeah, maybe if you put a no junk mail sign in there, they'll stop dropping off. But I don't know. I don't know if they will stop.
That would be a good suggestion.
Yeah. So how can people purchase your forks and spoons? Go to your website, 2050?
People can go into 2050fork.com to order online currently. And then we also contact some distributor, especially there's a lot of distributor in Europe, like our product, and then just ask us how much we can provide right now, and then how long to deliver to the destination. And as a chain store we're talking right now, we also negotiate with some chain store in United States.
Oh, good.
So hopefully in some chain store, maybe have some fast food or ice cream, yogurt store will come up our product. But before that, I still think convenience of the utensil should really have the price of economy rather than the cost of environment. So I wish people in United States will be have awareness is if we want to use the disposable utensil, should be like probably pay a little bit more. Like we use the plastic bag in supermarket. Mm-hmm. So that would be very good, helpful for our business in current stage. Of course, we also feel happy when customers bring their own utensil to prevent using disposable utensil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I keep some in my vehicle, but I actually find I don't order food that comes in garbage anyway, so I don't usually find myself needing to use a fork unless I can get someone to fill up my container, because I also drive around with jars and containers. My vehicle's like full of a lot of things. But yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so it's 2050, all spelled out, and 2050forks.com. That was right, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So if you're interested in checking them out, you can go on their website, 2050forks.com. And that was Zack Kong. And you're the founder. Are you the CEO as well?
Not really currently, because I handle part of the business to Asia. So I leave some of the jobs to my wife to handle that.
Oh, nice. Cool. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Zack. And I think that this is a wonderful thing that you're doing. And I think it's leading positive change. And I'm going to put one in my compost, and I'm going to put one outside and see what happens. So thank you, Zack.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Laura.
That was Zack Kong calling in from California about his new company, 2050. He makes forks and spoons that biodegrade in soil without needing an industrial composting facility or even a home compost. These things will disappear right in the dirt, which is pretty cool. Sometimes when we order takeout food, restaurants will automatically include plastic forks and spoons, even though a lot of people head straight home to eat and actually don't need them at all. So it's crazy to think of the journey of a fork that is made from oil and gas products and shaped into a fork. And oftentimes it'll come in its own little plastic bag. If you've ever had takeout with a plastic fork in a little plastic bag in your other plastic bag with a bunch of other plastic or styrofoam containers, it's just crazy that we feed ourselves with so much garbage. Anyway, so the fork will go in that bag, and then it will go right into someone's garbage if they don't use it, if they take it home and use a regular fork. So if you are getting takeout, especially during this COVID-19 time, if you actually just check the bag and maybe return them, they're probably not going to want to touch something that you touched, which is unfortunate. So maybe if you just put a special request not to put any condiments or not to put any utensils or anything like that, maybe they'll be able to help, maybe not. A lot of takeout places are busy and they might be stressed out. So if you do get one of those, you know, sometimes it happens. You can, of course, get a TerraCycle box and send them into TerraCycle for recycling, because most recycling facilities, especially mine where I live, the plastic forks are too small to be useful. So they fall through a sifter sort of thing when they're going around on the conveyor belt, and they end up just going to landfill. So if you do get a plastic fork and you put it in your curbside recycling, chances are, depending on your own facility, those plastic forks will just get sent to landfill anyway. So they are a pretty big problem. And I do like that that this is a good solution, because a lot of people just won't wash their dishes. I've talked to some big event places, and they say they just don't want to hire people to wash dishes. They don't want to use all the water. It might be too much water. One event place I went to was on a well system, and they actually literally did not have the water, the amount of water that it would take to wash dishes for hundreds of people after every event. So there are certain times where people prefer to have throw out options, which of course in the zero waste world, we'd rather have washable items, but this is kind of the world that we are dealing with. And another update on COVID-19. So if you are struggling to buy things without packaging, I do believe that this whole thing will be over soon and we can get back to shopping zero waste. I really hope that stores don't continue their bans on containers and plastic bags, because we know that the virus can live on plastic. And it's similar to cloth bags. So I see a lot of people out there complaining about people with dirty cloth bags. So make sure you wash your cloth bags regularly if you're taking them to the grocery store. But plastic can be just as germy as cloth. So I really hope that we can return normal soon. So hang in there, everybody. If you're listening to this as a new episode and we're still in the time of COVID-19, I think it will be over soon. And hang in there, and we can get back to saving the world when it's all over. So take care, everybody.
Change starts now.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast.